Welcome to Beware of Spoilers. I am Adam, trying to pull out of a parking lot. I had to run an errand after seeing today's movie, which is Top Gun Maverick. Housekeeping, first and foremost, please subscribe and tell people about the show. The more people who listen, the more cool stuff we can do. And trust me, we have a lot of cool stuff planned over the next few months. And a lot of it is money dependent to an extent. Namely that, it's like going to the movies is easy because it's cost deferred in a way, where the more people listen, the more, I use AMC A-List basically. So when I use AMC A-List, I'm only paying $23 a month, and I get to go 3 times a week. So when there's a ton of movies coming out, it gets spread out. So I'm not paying, $18 a night to go see these opening night movies. I'm paying, $23.99, and I'm going a bunch of times. But the other thing is with this, it's like other things do have a financial cost, especially as the cost of gas goes up. So the more people listen, the more cool things we can do besides just covering streaming stuff and, other things of that like. Now, and if we want to get onto Rotten Tomatoes and stuff, we need more subscribers and more ratings. If you can go onto iTunes, if you have iTunes, if you're an Apple user, give us a 5-star rating. That'd be very helpful. I don't like to beg, but I'm begging. So, in terms of schedule, tonight I'll be watching Kenobi later. So I'll be discussing that tomorrow morning on the way to see the Bob's Burgers movie. Then I'll be seeing the Bob's Burgers movie, and I will be discussing that. Right now, we have Top Gun Maverick, the latest, or the second entry in the Top Gun franchise. Now, I feel like the thing that needs to, I had never seen Top Gun before last night. My expectation for Top Gun Maverick was that the movie would be mediocre, and that it wouldn't be, I wouldn't get a lot out of it because I'm not a deep fan of the movie. And to an extent, that is correct. There's a lot there that I think that maybe had you seen the movie more than once the night before, you may have more enjoyment out of it, especially considering that, I feel like, I don't know if people remember this from when I talked about Jurassic World the first time, where I said that Jurassic World works best if you're familiar with the idea that a movie called Jurassic Park exists, but not the specifics that Jurassic Park is there, the specifics of the movie. And then because of nostalgia, it works and it banks on that. Now, what we have here is kind of a same thing, where you're watching a movie that is very much a sequel to Top Gun, a distant sequel to Top Gun in terms of time frame, but it is very much a sequel to Top Gun, and I think that maybe if your nostalgia functions better, some of the aspects of it work a little bit better than me, who, again, watched the movie for the first time last night and was like, oh, okay, so this is what I'm expecting. And I wasn't, I had low expectations for the movie going into it, and then I watched Top Gun, and I lowered my expectations even more. But this blew everything out of the water. I had no idea that this movie would be this good. And not just the dog fighting scenes and all the scenes of them fighting, all the things having to do with, the aircraft. That's all really cool and all of that. But there is this deep emotional core to the movie, and that really works. The first, and it does kind of juxtapose with the first movie in a really interesting way. The first movie has this kind of, what's what I'm looking for here? A hyper-masculinity to it that comes from the military worship. And it was the 80s where, it's the Reagan era, and it's toward the end of the Cold War, and now the Americans have, won. So it's this great, we haven't gotten into the quagmire situations of the 90s and the 2000s. So, and Vietnam is far enough in the rearview mirror where we can be look at how great the military is, our military might, look at how strong our military is. And then, everything that happens in that movie is kind of, blowing the military and how great the Air Force is, the Navy is in this case. not that it's bad necessarily to, what's it called? Not that it's bad necessarily to do that, but it does put a weird kind of, dating on the movie. So, looking at it through this, this prism, it's also the whole movie's a pissing contest, the first one, between, Maverick and Iceman. The whole movie's a pissing contest between the two of them over who's the better pilot, who's the better, all of that is basically the entire conflict of the movie between these two, and it's about Maverick overcoming that. This one has a really great tender moment in the movie, and it kind of has the same kind of, there is a masculinity to the movie in a sense, but the idea that, in the middle of this movie, there's this really emotional kind of vulnerable moment for both Iceman and Maverick, when the two meet, and Val Kilmer has some screen time, and he does very little talking, and the talking he does is poignant, and it's all about Maverick's relationship with Rooster, who is Goose's son, and it's about that, and it's this really poignant moment that really kind of takes their relationship and turns it completely on its head, and it works very well in the movie. I think it's worth addressing the fact that the moment really only works. No, I think it does work the entire time. There is a situation where that scene doesn't work. And I think that's one of the real great things about the movie, is that it's taking some of the things that are criticisms of the original and turning it on its head. It got to the point where I, and again, only saw the movie once, and that was last night. When we get to the third act, and the third act is eventually the decision to put Maverick in this fight, I feel, and the thing is, I think mileage will vary on the ending of this movie, because the movie's 2 hours and 11 minutes, and you probably could have gotten away with 2:40 if you cut out everything after Maverick gets shot down, and just have Maverick die there. And Maverick's survival, for me, I feel like doesn't work based on the way he's portrayed through this movie and into the next. Now, there are two schools of thought where you can take the approach that this movie does, where it's he has to learn to have a life outside the military, and his decision there is all about, this decision to not be to not be that person, and because he, as we get into this finale, he's kind of given up, and he's resigned to his death, and there's a lot of that, and it works really well, and you get to the the third act, and he does get shot down, and you're like, it's fitting. It is a fitting end to this character, because unlike and it's like, because all through the movie it's like, well, you've done all this great stuff, and you never got promoted, you never did, you never moved above captain, and it's this idea that he is waiting to die. He is trying actively to die without physically killing himself. Like, that result is his option, and he's resigned to death. And then I feel like that is the way to go, where it's like James Bond, it's like Iron Man, it's like all these other characters who, as long as there is the next mission, and he's alive to do it, he will put himself out there because it's the right thing to do. He cannot just resign and go into the sunset. That's not who he is. And I feel like that choice here, like the decision that they have to have this entire extra sequence where it's kind of like Batman in that regard, where or the Batman in that regard, where he's not allowing himself to, like, the movie feels like there is the perfect ending, and then on top of that they decide not to take that ending and instead go with this other thing instead, which you know, I feel like it's just kind of tacked on. Like, he gets shot down, and then, you know, Rooster comes back for him. And you know, again, there is a school of thought where his entire emotional arc should be about making amends with Goose's son. There's a strong case, and that is the case in this movie, that should be the emotional arc of the movie. I just feel like there's a way to do that where he sacrifices his life for him, because then on top of that, it also repays the debt, and it also allows him he dies with a clear conscience, and a lot of it, that I feel like would have been a better way to end off the movie, is him sacrificing himself for that kid. That would have been the perfect poetic ending for it. And then, because then to have him save the day feels kind of extraneous, and it feels like, you know, it like, on the one hand, where he's shouldering this burden of this guy's death for this long, like, I totally get what that, like, I understand that, like, you know, having it be the son deciding to forgive him for that, I get that, but at the same time, it's like, I don't know, I feel like him dying would have been the better way to do that, and then it would have been, you know, better for everyone. I do like the, you know, his relationship with Penny through the movie. I like the way they developed that, and they kind of, you know, do that, and I think the only way that they set up where he's going to live is through that. But besides that, he is kind of going through the motions of, I'm going to die, and I'm willing to die. I wish the stakes had been a little bit more defined. That would have been a little bit more helpful, because it's kind of ambiguous. And I understand why it's ambiguous, because I can't say, like, it's always a rogue state, but you don't know where, but it's definitely Russia because it's snowy. You don't know where it is, and they're flying through it, and you can't, there's no, you know, country insignia on it, which I guess you can say is because of the fact that it's designed to be like, I don't know what it is about the red and black American flag that these fucking nutjobs have commandeered that's so ominous to me. Like, there's something profoundly ominous about that. You get what I'm saying? Where it's like the idea that him being shot down, you know, well, where the fuck was I? That flag freaked me out. Let's see, what else is there? Let's talk about Penny and her daughter, I think, and how that relationship kind of, you know, I don't know. I feel like the idea that, I do feel like he should have died at the end of the movie. I feel like that's the biggest thing. The stakes, that's what I was talking about, where it's like, it's a rogue state, but it's never defined, and it's not defined as, this is a clear and present danger to the United States. It is defined as, it's a danger to our allies in the region. And it's like, look, I understand doing things to help our allies. However, the fact that John Hamm is in this movie and willing to put soldiers on the line for an ally, and he's talking about risking his career by putting Maverick in, I don't know. I feel like if things went south on this mission, which they were about to, had Maverick not come in and proven that they could do it the right way and not the dumb way, or, I mean, they're both the dumb way, but, you know, like, the idea that they needed to prove it that way, and then they come in and they're like, oh, so this is how this mission has to be done, and, like, had the American soldiers died, the American pilots died trying to do this, it doesn't matter, he would have lost his job either way. Like, the whole thing is like, I feel like that's the thing behind it. Like, the idea that this mission is what it is, it does feel kind of strange to me. And I think that's something that could have been better addressed in the movie, is what are the stakes of this? How do the stakes directly relate to the point where we need to do this and not send a drone in? Because I don't think they explain that either. And they talk about, like, sending in drones fairly regularly throughout the movie, and they, like, especially early on, where it's like they need to prove that these people are still, credible, but, like, maybe there's a latency in drones, but, like, there is no reason why, like, a drone couldn't have done that job. I don't know. Maybe I'm just vastly overestimating what a drone can do. What else was there? I think that's really it. I mean, besides that, the movie's kind of airtight. I mean, the action's all good. It's very well shot. And there's enough homages to the original to keep the longtime fans engaged while also creating a good enough movie, because that first movie's not great. Like, that's the thing about that first movie, is that, like, I feel like that first movie has the same place in people's hearts that, like, people of my age group feel about 300. Because, like, much like, this movie, 300 came out in 2006, which was toward the beginning of Iraq and toward the beginning of Afghanistan. Well, I mean, like, Afghanistan had gone on for about 5 years at that point. But, like, it is this military worship. And while it's not the U.S. military, it is the military of Sparta. It is this hyper-masculine look at what it is, what the military is. It has beautiful visuals, but beyond that, it's not exactly a, what's it called? It is like, and on top of that, it's like, it's that kind of view that kind of defines masculinity. It's kind of the same thing for both movies, and, they do have these cult classics, and the movie themselves that's underlying is not a particularly great movie, but it is, they're both beautiful movies, like, from a cinematography standpoint, and what Top Gun did for shooting the aerial action sequences was, leagues better than anyone had done up until that point. So, Top Gun does have that role in the same way that looking at the action sequences in, the action sequences in 300 are all very visually unique. Because before Zack Snyder had gotten into, big budget movies, I think it's his first big budget movie at that point. And I could be wrong. I don't know if that came, I think Sucker Punch came after Watchmen. Because Sucker Punch came between Watchmen and Man of Steel. So I think this may be his first big budget movie, was 300, and looking at it in that regard, it is beautifully shot. You can't take that away from him, and it is, beautifully weird, but it is that same kind of thing. So for these two movies to kind of fit in that same thing, maybe in another 20 years or 15 years, oh, Jesus fucking Christ, it's already almost been 20. Like, maybe in another few years, in another, like, decade or so, we'll get another movie like this for 300, because it is the same kind of thing, where it's like people are going to have fond memories of it, but it's not, that fond memory is going to be more associated with the time of your life or what was going on in the era compared to what the movie actually is. Because I feel like people going in blind, or people of that era who decide to watch this movie, now they'll be like, oh, this is what everyone was freaking out about. And it's the same kind of thing. Because that's how I felt. I didn't watch 300 in 2006 because I was in 6th grade, and that would be ridiculous. But I watched 300 after, and I was like, this is what everyone was freaking out about. Like, this is that awesome movie that, is so cool. Like, I didn't get it. But yeah, we'll wrap up there for today. It has been a very long week, but we have a very long 2 days, as I said at the beginning of the episode. We have Kenobi tomorrow morning on my way to record to watch Bob's Burgers, and then after Bob's Burgers, I'll be recording the Bob's Burgers review. So we have all of that. I'll catch up on The Flash at some point in the near future. I'm a little behind, but I need to catch up on that. I don't know. Did I get up to the funeral? I know the funeral happened, but I don't think I got up to the funeral on the show. But either way, we will see what we get up to. We'll see what we get up to with that. And then after that, we will have, maybe some other stuff as it happens. Because I know that's there, and I don't know what's coming out, beyond that. Oh, that BJ Novak movie looks really interesting. It's like a thriller, but like a realistic thriller that's like kind of, comedic at times. Like that movie, I saw it, and I saw the description, and I was like, who the fuck wants this? And apparently I the fuck wants this. So, let's see how that plays. And I'm looking forward to seeing that movie when it comes out in July. Vengeance, I think it's called. I saw the trailer for the first time. I also saw the trailer for the new Ghost Mission Impossible movie, and I'm not exactly, ecstatic about it. It's not something that particularly, piques my interest, for lack of a better word. But I'll see it, It's kind of like, oh, you want to see Tom Cruise again? Well, here's Tom Cruise again. Also, my theater made a interesting decision when it came to the trailers. I don't know if it was just my theater or it was Paramount dictating this, but Disney and Warner Brothers will spread out their trailers throughout the entire, preview period. So it's not all loaded into one section. Paramount put all 3 of theirs in a row, and it really highlights how little they have coming out. So we'll wrap up there for today. We'll be back with all of that other stuff over the next 2 days or so. So until then, have a great rest of your week.